Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask an Architect. Today, I'm here with Sarah Nelson Voynich, uh, and we're going to talk a little bit about her experience, her career, and exactly why she became an architect. So, just to get us started off, I'd love to just know a little bit about your educational background and your architectural experience in general.
Yeah, definitely. It is great to be here. Super excited to have this opportunity, really just to kind of talk and share about where I've come from. So I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and went to Virginia Tech University. I kind of always had the idea that I wanted to go into architecture, but it wasn't until about halfway through actually studying architecture that I was for sure certain that that was the field that I wanted to be in. And really, it's only been the last 2 to 3 years of my career where I've been very certain that this is absolutely the profession I'm meant to be in. So for me, it's, even though I was growing up a person who was really hands-on and really loved to be active and loved to be engaged in whatever I was doing, it's only been recently that I've actually kind of really leaned into my definition of what it means to be an architect and why I love it so much. So I did graduate from Virginia Tech with a bachelor's of architecture and a minor in leadership and social change, which has been kind of my undertones of everything that I've started to do the last couple of years, and not ever realized how impactful some of the classes that I took specific to that minor have really been in what I've been doing. So that's been really fun. I worked a couple of different internships kind of all across the Southeast when I was in school. So I was in Raleigh, Durham for a summer, over in Richmond, Virginia for a summer, then Roanoke. But ultimately, kind of after graduating, was looking at a couple of different places, mainly bigger cities with mass transit. That was kind of the big driver for me, was I want to be able to get on a train and then go to work and then go home. And ultimately landed in Atlanta, which is not known for its transit system, but still use it every single day and still love it all the same. I'm working for HKS. I've been here since I graduated, which has been about 5.5 years. And I've kind of grown my way from design professional to now a project architect here.
Awesome. Okay. So it sounds like you've had, honestly, a lot happened in your life in a short amount of time. You have a lot of experience. You hopped around a lot, which sounds like a lot of fun. Maybe not the most notable cities. So could you maybe tell me about your experience in these smaller towns?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of growing up in the Raleigh-Durham area, that kind of made it easy, air quotes, to start my first internship and experience within architecture there. And I think that was kind of one of the first moments where I realized that I might want to do this thing called architecture and be an architect one day. I worked for a pretty small design build firm called Build Sense out of Durham, North Carolina, and got to spend the summer working alongside both architects, engineers, general contractors. They kind of had everybody under one firm and one umbrella. And so even though we were working largely on kind of smaller single family residential, really got to see a broad perspective of what it is architects can do, from sitting in an office, drawing or designing, all the way to, since it's design build, I actually got the opportunity to build and construct over the summer and work alongside different contractors and actually making or demoing different spaces. So really got to see a broader picture of who architects are. They were also really good at inviting me to different industry networking or happy hours. So I had to see that there's this bigger community definition beyond just the office. And so that was really unique. And I think kind of from there, these maybe less notable cities have really just been because there's been opportunity that's come from that. So I interned with HKS in their Richmond office, had a really great summer working with their sports group and really kind of seeing what is the big firm perspective. And then in Roanoke, even though that was kind of a bit hey, that's not quite the city that you would think people would spend the summer in, because it was so close to Blacksburg, I actually had the opportunity to be living in Blacksburg. I was working 2 jobs that summer, working as a server at a local restaurant, and then during the day going over and working at an architecture firm, but then got to have that spill into my senior year and actually work part-time while going to school. So I think it really kind of helped me kind of ground a lot of the theoretical that I was studying and learning in school in the practical that I was, going 2 times a week into the office and, actually working, as a part-time employee there. So I think less maybe kind of renowned cities, not your New York, your Chicago, your San Francisco, but I think they've all been really pivotal in community building and in relationship building and really kind of having that very real world architecture experience to marry with the academic exposure that I was getting.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think really great for our members to hear too, because a lot of people shoot for those bigger cities, but there's opportunity everywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really, yeah. Find some really valuable experience. Clearly, anywhere you go. Well, I don't want to make it seem like just anywhere, but
no, definitely.
Just don't turn down the opportunity. Yeah.
I was gonna say I had even a really candid conversation with one of my supervisors or mentors at HKS to kind of say like, look, I've got some opportunity. Like, what would you recommend doing? And it really stuck with me. He said, if there's ever a time to go and explore and do something different, it's in your internships. Like HKS will be here if you want to come back. We'd love to open that conversation again. But also, if you're looking for something different, go do it now. Like you can do it in your career, but it's lower stakes if you go do it now. And I made it back to HKS just in our Atlanta office, but I think that was really, really impactful because it gave me so much exposure for something that that was completely different than what I had done that summer. And I think really kind of impacted, and to your point, showed that just because it's in Roanoke, Virginia, doesn't mean it's any less of a formative experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, just where did your passion for art and design and community come from?
Yeah, I think my passion for art has kind of always been present, but it was mainly in kind of like performing and music arts. So I was in orchestra and I was that band nerd in high school, and actually thought for the longest time I was only going to go into music. About halfway through architecture school, I was kind of like, do I want to keep doing this thing or do I want to try to do music education and composing? Ultimately decided I can still pursue that as a passion if I want to. But I think kind of found the arts, the music and performing arts weave their way into the arts as it relates to architecture and relates to design. And that there was just a lot of kind of creative synergy. It was just kind of tapping into a slightly different part of my brain or a slightly different way that started to, actually manifest itself. And community has always been something that's just been really ingrained and entrenched in me from the time I was little, whether it was community, the community of your family, your chosen family, the community that you're surrounded by, and getting out, engaging, knowing the people that you live next to. I think that's always just kind of been just a really core building block of who I am.
Awesome. I love that. I love that you're taking your humanity and putting it into your career, because a lot of people are just like money.
So yeah. Money's great. Money's important. And we should definitely, as architects, especially anybody who is a woman or a minority in architecture, advocate for your money, advocate for yourself. But also I think the opportunities that I've found to be able to not just pursue this as a passion, but also a career, and the fact that I can bring those two together has been very, very special.
Awesome. I'm curious, what other qualities do you think are important for an architect to have?
I think definitely an openness and a curiosity. Every single day, I might come in and think that a project or a meeting is going to go a certain way, or that hey, I've had that experience before, this is similar, it's going to be the same thing again. And I'm always learning something, and I always kind of have to approach things with a curiosity. And definitely sometimes a humility to realize I might have thought something and I was totally wrong about it. And I think especially because a lot of what I see myself doing both at day job and anything I'm involved in outside of kind of work with HKS is so community centric. I think really that curiosity to just lean in and listen and learn and truly hear what other people are saying to you and the experiences that they're sharing. I think when you can have that curiosity and that humility kind of married together, you have the potential to have a greater impact, because it's not just your voice in the room, it's the voice of every person, both the project team, the client, and ultimately the people that you're going to, and the communities that you're going to be impacting, that you really have the opportunity to hear and influence change around. I think also creativity. Like there's going to be some things where it's like if you just kind of stick to option A or option B, that might not be kind of the result that's actually needed. And so I think just that creativity to say we might not have a solution now, but we will work together and work collaboratively to get to the solution, and be creative in it, even if it's something that maybe pushes a boundary or pushes kind of outside of the box. That we're kind of actively part of defining what that is, and that's exciting, but also kind of takes the creativity to blur some lines and figure out, well, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it, and if you should do it, how does that actually look and impact those who are ultimately used?
Gotcha. Just about weighing things and figuring things. It's a lot of trial and error, it sounds like.
Oh
A lot
yeah,
of
definitely.
finding
Yes.
your way.
Yes. Yes. Lots.
I'm so sorry.
But no, yes. I said lots of finding your way.
Yes. I think a lot of our members are trying to do that currently, but I think just in this day and age, a lot of people are trying to find their way faster because they feel like they need to. They're trying to get this goal faster. I'm curious, what is your approach to entering this industry, and how do you think other people should kind of approach walking into this with that openness, that creativity, but how would you define your personal approach?
Yeah, I was definitely on the side of taking it kind of fast and furious and packing a lot into a little. And I think that I have an appreciation for that, because there's a realization that I don't think I would be where I am today had the first 3 years of my career not happened the way that they had. At the same time, I think like burnout and mental health are like two very real things, and I sometimes feel very fortunate to still be in this profession. I think that there was a very steep learning curve, and I think that curiosity, that humility, that interest in learning, that push and that drive were all present, which kind of has allowed me to continue to grow through that. But I think it was also very difficult, and I was the student that became a young professional at 2 years in, was already burned out. And I think that takes a lot out of a person. And I think my encouragement kind of as those who are entering the profession, and have these opportunities and choices to evaluate would be to say, approach it openly, take the opportunities, take the jump, build the trust with yourself and with your teams. Because I think that trust and that ability to really work and grow together, that truly active and reciprocal mentorship is so important. But also would offer that caution to say that the clock is not ticking, and that time will be there, and the growth will happen, and the opportunities will continue to come. And so I think kind of this need to meet this milestone, this need to hit some defined point in a certain amount of time, would really encourage, say, make sure that you kind of preserve and honor and respect yourself and respect your boundaries, and know that burnout is real, and that there might be small sprints, but if everything is a sprint, it's going to wear on you over time. And it certainly wore on me. And I think just a caution and a hope that things in the profession and the industry can be different and can set a different pace and a different example for those who are entering the profession.
Mm-hmm. So you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, and people in between, do what you can. Don't push yourself any further. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you take care of yourself in the middle of things as you're learning and you're growing in this profession. Is that kind of what I'm getting from you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious because it sounds like everything isn't easy in this profession, and it really does take some sacrifice in some ways. So what would you say is the most difficult thing about this profession?
Oh man. There's a lot of things that can be difficult. I think probably the most difficult thing, at least for me, is realizing that you cannot change everything overnight. And I am definitely a person who, when it's time to make a change and when we're all jumping on board and moving in the same direction, I want that change to, instantaneously happen, whether it's with a project or with a creative solution that we're trying to come to, with the development of a team or building a relationship with community, or even, changing the way the profession looks and the way that, we as an industry can really elevate and advocate for those whose voices have not been heard. Like am a person who wants that change to happen a lot faster than it's going to. And I think that can be difficult, but I think, married with that is also the celebration that the incremental change is happening and will continue to happen. And I think to hold on to the fact that even though it's difficult because it's not changing instantaneously, there will be more difficulties and celebrations in the slow and incremental progress as it happens, and as folks all over the place continue to push for it in any kind of regard, both project work and just in the profession as a whole.
Just, well, personally, how do you find that patience to kind of just have to deal with things take time, and that is just a fact of life? How do you personally deal with that?
I don't deal with it well. But I think yeah, being quite candid, I don't know that I struggle to be the most patient person that I can be, but I think I seek the avenues and I seek the communities to kind of channel that into. So I am involved in the Young Architects Forum, which is kind of a national member group that has representatives from each state really advocating for what those who have just been licensed to 10 years of licensure are kind of needing and in their place. So that's kind of an avenue of channeling some of this. How can we ensure that we are at the table as leaders now and leaders who are going to be here for the next 15 to 20 years and making and impacting that change? And I think that's one avenue and one example of really saying I have to be patient, but also I don't have to be stagnant, and to really be able to find those communities within the profession, within the work that I'm doing, where that change can be magnified and multiplied. I think kind of helps have the patience reminder, but also have that avenue for channeling opportunities for change.
Mm-hmm. So when with those different people in the community, could you name maybe some other community leaders that you are familiar with and that kind of help you with dealing with just your own personal journey?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I think so. Specific to the Young Architects Forum, we have our advisory committee, which is a group of 8 of us from all across the country. And I think that kind of as a smaller community within a community is just, a group that acts absolutely every time we're on a call or find ourselves in the same place together and are able to really roll up our sleeves and get into the work that is right in front of us. I think, there's that support with what we're actively engaged in collectively, and then support of one another as individuals of just, how's your life? How's your family? How's the stuff that you're working on? What can we do to support each other? And there's something that's just so special about that, to kind of find that group of people who is in something collectively together, but also can be in it together, like people to people. So it's that whole crew of folks from Hawaii to Texas, Iowa, DC, Ohio, like we're all over the map. And so I think it's a wonderful community of peers who are just elevating and amplifying and supporting each other.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And honestly, do you believe that that's necessary? Do you believe in this industry that a person in this industry needs to have a community that they build, like their own chosen family, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think it certainly made things definitely easier for me. I think when I was getting into architecture, and when I went to Virginia Tech, part of it was intentionality around leaving the community that I was in. So I grew up in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a very homogenous community, both in the ways that people look, as well as the ways that people think. And so for me, architecture has always represented this coming into and kind of coming into myself, coming into a community of peers and of support. And I think I'm able to kind of sit back and reflect now and really see that some of those decisions that at first were decisions to get out have actually been opportunities to move into it. And I think kind of the longer and the more that I'm in this, the more I'm seeing just how important it is to find that place that you can come in and you can be yourself, and also have that group around you who is supporting and walking alongside you in that. Super, super important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would have to agree. And just in life, like you need those people behind you that make you feel confident in your decisions,
Oh
make you feel
yeah.
like you're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, a little bit of a deep question here. Um, Maybe just a big question. How do you envision the future of architecture as a whole? How do you picture this industry in the next 20 to 50 years?
Oh man. I'm gonna take a couple seconds to think about it before I answer. So hopefully that like doesn't totally mess up the recording. The first thing that came to mind was that I envision um, a profession that looks incredibly different from how it's looked the last 20 years. I think, already you look at statistics of students graduating school and it's almost 50% male and female. If we're just kind of breaking statistics down simply into a binary. But I think, continuing to see the profession change and have multiple different people's backgrounds, perspectives, completely and authentically represented. And I was talking to a couple of students the other day, a profession in which they don't have to leave part of themselves at home when they come into work. Like I absolutely, as an industry and as a profession, have aspirations and visions of a future in which the whole industry continues to change and evolve in the way that it looks and the way that people are accepted and able to bring their whole selves to work. I think that only continues to make us better. That continues to make the work that we're doing in the cities with the people that we're doing it with that much more impactful. I think when the profession doesn't look like the people and the places that we're working in, like we're not setting anything up for success and for the opportunity for it to be as good as it can be. And I think there's a lot of responsibility when we're talking about making space in places that people will continue to come and continue to live or work or celebrate in. And I think the more the profession can continue to become just this rich, diverse place that people can authentically be themselves, the more impactful and the better our communities and environments get. That's a huge, 20-year, 50-year out vision and hope and goal. And I think also married with that, I think architects have, and maybe this is like, again, I'm an architect, so my perspective is only about architects, but I think there's this unique opportunity to not only ask questions, but to bring people together and to kind of collectively say, like, we're not just asking the questions by ourselves, but we're trying to solve big problems with big solutions and whether that solution is something that's built or whether that solution is something that's more than built. I think we're trying to like be in this space to literally say, like, how are we shaping our cities? How are we shaping the way in which people are living their lives? And the buildings and the spaces in between buildings that they are doing that in. Like that's a really big question to ask with a lot of responsibility. But I think architects, have this opportunity to not just get in a computer and sit at a desk and draw all day, but also bring voices into the space that have the opportunity to influence that. And I think my hope in the next 20 to 50 years is that that only continues to be present and open up, and that kind of the role that the architect plays, and the role that architecture as a profession plays of, yes, we can build buildings, we can draw drawings, we can work with contractors to make sure that buildings get built. But I think also that piece of we can ensure that multiple different voices are represented at the table for that work that we are doing, for those big questions we are trying to answer. I think I have a hope that like understanding of who the architect is and can be, that it only continues to be shaped and defined by those voices at the table.
I agree. Given your thoughts about the future, I'm curious, what advice or what would you say is just maybe the most helpful thing you've heard, or what do you believe is the most helpful thing to hear for young architects in order to kind of make this positive future that makes the field a lot more inclusive, even a possibility?
I think it would be like an encouragement to not be afraid to ask questions. I think I've had a couple of recent conversations specifically with students that really kind of started because they're like, we have a bunch of questions and we don't know who to go to, but we know you and you might know other people. And so I think just that ability to kind of take a leap, have a little bit of trust, but also say like, yeah, absolutely. And whether it's me, whether it's 50 other people, 100 other people, that the profession is excited about those who are coming into it and wants to be here to help and available and answer questions. I think I would really encourage for anybody who's a young professional or who's coming into architecture to not be afraid to ask those questions, because I'm continually amazed and kind of surprised at how and where answers come from, and that it is resoundingly ones of support and encouragement.
Mm-hmm. I love that because outside looking in, architecture seems like this incredibly daunting field. It seems like everyone in the room is so um, harsh. Everyone has on a black turtleneck and everyone has an X-Acto knife. That's like what you picture. And I think a lot of people step into the field with that mindset and are afraid to ask those questions. So I love that you have had an emphasis on just being open and being excited. And architecture can be fun. It can be so many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love my job. I'm glad I didn't wear my black turtleneck today though, because I almost did, but it's 70 degrees in Atlanta. So I was like, I can't wear the black turtleneck. So I'm glad I did not do that today.
Lucky you. It's like wet here and it's like 50 and I'm from Georgia and you just made me miss home. So.
Well, it's gonna rain, but at least it's like, 70 and rainy and humid versus like just cold and rainy.
Mm-hmm. A little better. A little.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Question. Well, two more questions actually. How can our readers follow you and your projects?
Yes. So I think LinkedIn is always a great avenue to connect. So I am on LinkedIn as Sarah Nelson Voynich. And then I have recently started a blog, which is kind of a side project. And it's called Pride by Design. And I am hoping to have a website come in the next month or two. But right now we are we have a guest spot on the AIADC Wield Committee. Their website is Equity by Wield, I believe. And in their stories section on the website, we've been guest writing within that for the last October. And that is a great avenue to connect with me because I think I have an Instagram and then also that website. And then hopefully we're in the midst of developing and kind of continuing to see kind of where does the future go for Pride by Design. And hopefully we'll have a new website here in the next couple of months.
That sounds awesome. Yes. So everyone be on the lookout, follow Sarah on LinkedIn, and make sure you stay tuned for that website link. And last question of the day. What is your hottest take on architecture?
Ooh, can you, man, what's the newest hottest thing going on? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm a pretty I'm usually the black turtleneck person. So.
Oh, I love that. That means you're like the black sheep of architecture. So that's good. But what I mean is, what's your most controversial opinion? Let's say if I ask you, what is the most overrated construction in the world? Yeah. And someone says falling water, and people are like, "Oh, that's crazy." What's your crazy?
Oh man. Okay, so it's a recently developing one, but Starchitects are great and they do great work, but there are so many other people who are making so many more impactful ripples within their communities. So I think you'll learn a lot about these incredibly impactful architects who have truly changed the profession in school, but don't stop there. Keep going. There are a lot more folks out there who you may never hear about, but hopefully we're starting to create space to elevate their work and their stories.
Okay, awesome. And
I hope that's not a shots fired. I hope that's not ooh, yeah.
No, I think that's on the milder side. And I think, honestly, I think a lot of people will agree with that one, whether they admit it or not. So,
Okay, safe space, safe
yes,
space. There's
safe
a
space.
lot of architects out there.
Absolutely. So many. And honestly, with this series, we're trying to make a bit more. So, thank you
I
for
love
meeting with us today. I think we're going to help to change some minds and make some final decisions, right? Get some people to
it.
have that turning point like you had at that point in your life.
Yes. Yes, we need you. If you're listening to this, we definitely need you. So please don't stop.
Mhm. Don't give up. And especially in this field, it seems so daunting, but don't give up. We need you. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been Ask an Architect today with Sarah Nelson Voynich. Thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.